Hey guys, my name is Javin Mullet. I'm actually currently serving in the Dominican Republic as a missionary with my wife and 2 children. This gives a bit of context with the hunt that you're about to watch here. In the summer of 22, we had actually just returned home to have our baby girl in Ohio, and we had plans to leave for the DR again November 1st. So I knew if I was going to get my buck, it was going to have to be the first few weeks of the season. I did a few poor man style kill plots, ran a couple cameras, spent a few nights out glassing, and was able to put a list of a few bucks together that I was hoping to catch up with that fall. All right, July 31st, and I'm out here doing some scouting this morning. I actually just drove the four-wheeler up here on this oak ridge, and I actually just cleared a spot right here on the ground for a mock scrape, and I'm thinking I'm gonna just do this early and probably just set this camera here, not even hang a stand, just plan on doing a hanging hunt in here. If one of these mature bucks comes and hits this and tells me that they're here, this is the spot that I'll be able to hunt him. I wasn't going to be super picky. I was going to be happy with any 4-year-old that was going to give me an opportunity. My strategy was pretty simple. I was planning to put a handful of mock scrapes and cell cameras in specific places that I felt like any of these bucks might move into for a fall pattern. I talk about this in depth in my ebook, Mock Scrapes That Kill. My plan was to keep my 1 month long season super chill. Whatever happens, happens. I was going to have fun regardless. Until the morning of September 23rd, day before the opener, I got a picture of one of those bucks on my list on a mock scrape up on a ridge. I had gotten a picture of him 3.5 weeks earlier on August 30th, and I knew I had a decision to make. I knew this buck was familiar with that area. I knew there was bedding close by, and I knew the acorns were dropping right there. I felt pretty confident that this deer was going to be there for the next few days. I had already picked a tree out when I first put that camera up there in July and made that mock scrape. So I got up the tree and realized that this was not the tree that I should be in. There was branches right in front of me about 5 yards away. I couldn't reach them to trim them, and I knew it was going to block my shot. So I made the decision to get back down and reset in a different tree about 10 yards up the ridge, and I just made it in time before the deer started coming. I immediately get my camera turned on and try to film even though it was too dark, and finally was able to make out that it was 2 or 3 does that were browsing on acorns at this point by 20 yards away. 10 or 15 minutes passed and still didn't have great camera light. There's so many leaves on the trees still that early in the season, and saw another deer work its way across the ridge at about 35 yards. Got my binos up on him and realized that it was him. So now I'm in full hunt mode, trying to keep my nerves back and also trying to film through the leaves and trying to get him on camera. I watched him for a good 15 minutes just milling around, browsing on acorns. He would go to the right towards the does, and then he would go back to the left, push another buck off, and in the meantime rub a couple trees. And I was really noticing just how much I can get away with being behind the tree in a saddle, and how much movement I can really get away with even with all the other deer just within 20 yards. he finally worked his way across the ridge towards the does to the right. And it was to the point where I was running out of room on that side of the tree before I was going to have to go around the tree to try to make something happen. It's opening morning, and I haven't even done an interview. And I just got an arrow in a stud 9-point. I really thought I did have him on camera when I shot, and actually I did, and the tree was just in the way and it was super tight. But I knew that this could possibly be my last opportunity at him that morning. I was really nervous about the shot, but I ended up waiting until about 3 o'clock that afternoon and took a good friend from church and 2 of my nephews. We found the arrow about 75 yards up the ridge, and like I had expected, about 4 or 5 inches of penetration from what it looked like, and pretty good blood on the arrow. And then from there on out, the arrow had fallen out, and so had a good blood trail to follow. But ultimately ended up slipping within 45 yards and putting another arrow through his lungs before I finished him. Well, my first ever opening morning buck. 2022 season, and I couldn't be more happy. I'm tickled to death with this buck. This is actually a buck that I had filmed with a good buddy out in a alfalfa crop field this summer, and I put this mock scrape and a camera up on this oak ridge, specifically hoping one of these mature bucks would move into there after they shed their velvet. And I was expecting it would probably be this one because of always the direction that he came from. And this was my first ever saddle hunt. First time climbing into a tree with a saddle. And so it was interesting. It's a lot of fun. And everything worked out perfect except for the video. He walked behind the tree. I was self-filming, and at that point filming wasn't priority. I was just trying to get an arrow in him. For this to be my first ever saddle hunt, I was pretty impressed. Had I tried to do that tree switch right off the bat that morning with a traditional tree stand, I probably would have gotten busted right off the rip that morning. I guess you can now call me a happy saddle hunter.